evening after being alerted through social media. 5 beer kegs, a significant amount of spirits, bottled beers and bar equipment have been seized. A file is being prepared for the DPP. It's 2 minutes past 2.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. Download the new AA app to request a roadside rescue and track the patrol right to your car.
A mix of rain and sunny spells today with a risk of hail, windy with highest temperatures of 10 to 14 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
Now, this is Off the Ball. You're very welcome back to the show. Neil Treacy filling in for John Duggan this afternoon on News Talk until 5 o'clock. Latest score from the London Stadium in the Premier League. Coming up to around 15 minutes left between West Ham and Man City. Still 1-1 in that game. And round about now, a load of games throwing in the Allianz Football League. Kerry and Donegal just underway at Austin Stack Park. Kerry a point to no score in front there. Then all 4 games taking place in Division 2 of the Allianz League. Cavan and Roscommon underway, same as Clare, Armagh, Kildare, Westmeath, Fermanagh and Laois. And then in Division 4, Antrim and Waterford just underway. Sligo against Limerick, and then Wexford and Wicklow is also underway as well. Dublin and Laois throw in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship quarter-final at 6 o'clock at Croke Park. At 3:30 though, Ireland resumed their Six Nations campaign against Italy at the AVIVA Stadium. 3:30 kick-off for Andy Farrell's side. We're previewing the game now between now and 3 o'clock with Andy Dunne, Louise Galvin and Johnny Murphy. Before we get into it though, guys, a reminder of the Irish team. Cian Healy, Rob Herring and Andrew Porter in the front row. It's James Ryan and Tyke Byrne behind them, with Will Connors making his debut at 7, Quaylen Doris on the blind side and CJ Stander at number 8. Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton then in the half-backs. Gary Ringrose and Bundyaki in the centres. Hugo Keenan makes his debut on the wing. Andrew Conway on the other side, and then Jacob Stockdale at 15. And then among the bench, Ed Byrne and Jameson Gibson Park in line to make their test debuts. I'm joined by Johnny Murphy and Louise Galvin on Skype. First though, Andy Dunne is at the Aviva Stadium. And Andy, I was with you at Twickenham back on the 22nd of February. That was the last game of professional rugby I've been able to go watch. How about you? Was it strange to be back?
Yeah, it's very odd, but maybe it appeals to my inner recluse. I'm actually quite enjoying the fact there's nobody around. I got a lovely parking spot near the ground, strolled in, no hustle bustle, walked up, dialed in, and the only thing I'm missing, there's no sausage rolls or anything available, so I'll be hungry. But no, it's entirely different and hard really to describe. At this stage, obviously, it hasn't hit home just yet because an hour and a half before kickoff, it's typically fairly empty anyway. But I suppose you get that build-up and momentum and adrenaline rush in the lead-up to the game, and none of that's going to happen. So I suspect in the next half an hour or 40 minutes, it will be a bit strange.
Yeah, I'm sure as we build up towards 3:30, it's going to feel a little bit odd. Johnny Murphy and Louise Galvin also with us on Skype at the moment. Afternoon, guys. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, everyone.
Okay, we're still waiting for Louise to join us. Guys, before we dive in with the Irish analysis and looking ahead to the game, just want a quick word on Leinster last night. Obviously, the game itself, 63 points, they scored 63 points against Zebra, absolutely ran away with a bit of a non-event of a game, 68-3 in the end it finished. But I suppose the big thing that we're all really delighted about was the fact that Dan Levy came back on the pitch. And we heard from him in the news around there. He was speaking to Leinster Rugby's social media channels. Like, he was just absolutely delighted to get back. He was saying the knee was feeling absolutely perfect. He was really happy to have been out there. Seems to have no ill effects. He seems to be getting back to his full fitness and his match sharpness. And it was just absolutely great to see him back out there again.
Yeah, I think, he's been someone that's been really missed over the period that he's been out. And I think probably a lot of people didn't realise a lot of the work that he used to get through on the pitch, and it has been sorely missed, particularly, I suppose, in probably the English losses over the period that he's been out. He's a world-class player. And hopefully he can get in some good form now and try and get back into I think when he gets up to full match fit, he'll certainly be one of the first names potentially on the certainly on the Leinster team sheet, if not the Irish team sheet, and hopefully there's a chance that he could be going on the Alliance.
It's an interesting one, Neil, that I actually covered that Ulster game pitch side. It's I haven't done much kind of down on pitch level, and it was really kind of a graphic, visceral scene. Players immediately halted play. He was clearly at the time in such agony. But I remember in the week after that, talking to a couple of sports med doctors and a couple of people close enough to the setup who genuinely feared that it was a career-threatening injury. And nowadays, I suppose you look at Van Dijk last week, like a cruciate ligament injury for Van Dijk, known, obviously there's a bit of a hullabaloo, but you're guaranteed he's going to be back playing in 7 to 9 months. 20 years ago, Paul Gascoigne did his knee, same injury. That was effectively ruined his career. But when there's such advances in medical treatment, to hear a modern day player or a modern day sports medicine doctor say we think this one could end his career, it just goes to show you how good the quality of care he's received is, and how determined he is in terms of his attention to detail in his rehab and his motivation to get back out there playing. It's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, and I'm sure one of the benefit, guys, from that Leinster and Ireland had is that, the back row, it's probably one of those positions where they do have the numbers and they did have the competition that, as big a blow as losing someone like Dan Levy is, they weren't constantly waiting week on week to try get him back in as soon as they possibly could. Like Leinster had the luxury where I think it's kind of been hinted, if they had to, they probably could have played him in August if they really, really needed him to be there. But they have guys like Quayle and Doris. They had Max Deegan at the time. I know he is a long-term injury now as well, but they had Jack Conan as well. Guys like even Scott Penny, who played last night. There's stocks and stocks of back rows that were there that they were able to kind of give him as much time as he possibly needed and make sure that when he did come back onto the pitch last night, he was 100% ready to play a game of rugby again.
Yeah, I think that's massive. It just shows kind of the conveyor belt that they have, and see Connors, who's making his debut today. The quality that they have in their ranks. I suppose the difference, in my opinion, with Dan Levy is that he's genuine world class and at the top of his game. It would be very hard to leave him out of a World 15, and as good as Ireland are at their best, there's probably 3 or 4 guys like that, and Dan Levy for me is certainly one of them.
Mm-hmm. Let's fly through into the Irish team now and look ahead to this game against Italy. 6 changes from that game against England at Twickenham. Jordan Larmour and Tadhg Furlong, the only 2 to miss out by force from that selection. Overall thoughts on the team though, guys? Andy, I'll go to you first. We'll look through it in detail, I suppose, position by position a little bit later on. What are your overall thoughts of that 15 and, further on then the 23 for this afternoon?
I'm very enthused by the fact Farrell has changed selection. I think he's multiple options over the next year, and he's going to look, his selections are going to be combed over and analysed like any international selection is. We're only going to play whatever 10 to 12 games maybe max in the next year, but he doesn't have to add in variation right now. I'm delighted he did. He could have stuck with a more orthodox selection, but the likes of Stockdale going in at fullback shows to me that he's willing to take a few risks. He doesn't need a guaranteed, brilliant defensive fullback, for example. It kind of sets a tone in Farrell's selection policy straight away for maybe for the next few months. He's willing to give someone like Stockdale a chance out of position, and Stockdale, as we know, is absolutely talented player, but is not maybe recognised for being a safe option in much in the way we would have analysed that. Maybe who do you pick, Carney towards the tail end of his career, or Larmour being the more exciting version. In today's case, I think that Stockdale selection just represents a little shift in the Irish rugby selectors' consciousness and the management consciousness that they're prepared to take a few more risks.
Yeah, we may as well kind of stick on Jacob Stockdale here while we mention him there. So, Johnny, if Jordan Larmour and Keith Earls are fit, do you think Jacob Stockdale is in this starting 15? Is he even in the 23? And does he suit 15 more than 11 from what you've seen over the last little while?
I think so. I think his left foot adds something to the balance of their run kick options. Also, I think I agree with Dunne in the sense that, defensively he's been caught out, particularly on the left wing in games against England, and his backfield cover, where 15 in the defensive system, kind of the 13-2 that they play, it gives him a designated role, and he doesn't have to cover as much in the backfield, and I think that I think his performances at 15 have been, he's back to, he's starting to reach the form that he was when he scored that try against New Zealand a few years ago. So for me, I think it'll be very, very tight, but he also adds a bit of size, and his lines that Andy Farrell has spoken about in the media this week, I'm looking forward to seeing them, and I think it's a very exciting back three across the board.
Yeah, Louise Galvin's joined us now. Louise, afternoon.
Good afternoon. Sorry, there are a few technical difficulties.
Look, that's where we are at the moment. We're back in this lockdown. Nobody in studio for the time being. But look, Louise, we're going to go back 8 months exactly since Ireland last played that game against Italy. If we were to cast our minds back to when that tournament, when the Six Nations was postponed back in March, what do you think Andy Farrell's homework has been now over the last few months? He's had plenty of time to prepare for these last couple of games and for the games coming up in November as well. If we're making a checklist of the things that he would have been marking down as key priorities over the summer months, what do you think they would have been?
Well, I think one thing is personnel, and that is, obviously he was part of Joe Schmidt's backroom team, and you don't just come in at the end of a World Cup, especially when he's a connection with so many players, and wipe the slate clean with some very good players, but it's trying to create his own stamp on the team, which I think has probably been something he probably envisaged would be a bit of a process over the course of the Six Nations, but then obviously the 6, 7, 8 month break meant he could, this is almost like a new season. Well, it is like a new season, even though we are finishing the end of the Six Nations. And I think he has shown that he's gone with that bit of a break with the selection he's made this weekend. I know we have some enforced injuries around the second row and that, but otherwise, like when I saw that team, I know I got pretty excited, particularly with the amount of debutants that he's brought in. He wants to go a little bit on form, and I think he wants to start playing a bit more of, I don't want to say heads up rugby, because every international rugby player is obviously playing heads up rugby, but that we're not relying necessarily on the maybe tighter, stringent type of rugby that we were playing under Joe Schmidt, that relied maybe more on your power play to get our scores and to control possession as much as possible. I think he'll probably try to bring a bit more expansiveness into it. We're hearing good things about Mike Catt as well, so hopefully we'll actually start to see a little bit that on the field in the next 2 rounds anyway of the Six Nations, and going forward into the tests in November and December.
So you mentioned like he's bringing in new players. There's 4 players in line to make debuts this afternoon. So one of those, Hugo Keenan on the wing, a player we probably wouldn't have seen too much of pre-lockdown, but certainly since the resumption, and certainly in the resumption since August, on the wing for Leinster, he's looked absolutely fantastic. What's he going to be bringing to this team?
Yeah, so Hugo I've actually seen a lot of in our Sevens programme. He would have gone to the Sevens World Cup in San Francisco as well, that he would have been at, and obviously helped the guys get onto the World Series. He's a different type of a back three or wing player to a Jacob Stockdale or Jordan Larmour. He's quite a footballer. I think he's more like almost like a Keith Earls type player who I could easily see him down the line if he is to become a consistent starter for Ireland, being that type of player that could step into 13. He's a really good rugby brain about him, has a lot of skills, as opposed to having that necessarily X-factor finishing quality that we might associate with Stockdale a bit more so. So he's very solid in all his skills, very solid defensively, solid in the air, and just a smart footballer as well. So I'm really excited to see Hugo involved. One thing I was thinking about him down the line again in the future, if you're looking into crystal ball, I know at the last World Cup we were all talking about like the Ford Farrell dual playmaker, or Mounga and Bowden Barrett. If you are, blooding someone like Hugo Keenan and bringing them in, and maybe positionally might switch to 15 as he gets a bit more experience, I think he's that type of player that could step into that second playmaker role down the line for Ireland. So I'm very excited to see him playing here today.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned like obviously the Sevens background, your own Sevens background as well. It is something we've probably seen with this squad, that and kind of the younger players coming through across the provinces. There is more of a kind of there is more of a representation of guys who have been involved in that sevens programme. And like, I suppose maybe the worry some people might have had a few years ago when sevens was, you know, the IRFU were putting big resources into it, that they were just going to put players out to sevens and you were going to become a career sevens players. But we can kind of see over the last few years that there have been guys coming back in from the sevens programme and really kicking on into the 15s game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've always been a little bit behind the likes of New Zealand. Like, for example, Caleb Clark, the last tournament I played in Sydney in New Zealand, Sydney and Hamilton, New Zealand in January, February before COVID hit, Caleb Clark was playing for the New Zealand Sevens. Obviously stepped back into the club game then, and look at him now, absolutely setting the Bledisloe Cup alight. It's been no secret that for, you know, if you can, sevens obviously is a sport in its own right, and if you have your season campaigners that you build a core team around, and then you use a lot of the provincial guys that are coming up, give them an opportunity to really hone in on all their skills, because you're playing it at a frenetic pace and you have to be able to tackle ruck, pass off left, right equally with a lot of under a lot of pressure, under a lot of fatigue. So I think a lot of players, if it's used in the right way, they're coming back at all these skills massively honed in under what is a hugely frenetic pace. And if they can adapt that back into a 15s game then, which is a lot more of a technical, tactical side to it maybe, then, well, their skills when they're put into that one-on-one situation, they could be improved a whole lot more. I know with the sevens men at the moment for their game time, they're playing the provincial squads over 3 consecutive Saturdays. I think today is the second Saturday. And, you know, again, it's a great opportunity for the provincial guys to get a look at it, for the sevens guys to get a run out when there are no 7 series at the moment. And for coaches all around, like, the more rugby we can get, the more time we can see guys out in the field, then all the better. And certainly, like, even the likes of Alexander Wooten, who's at Connacht now, he would have been sevens. Peter Sullivan, I mean, we saw that great try for Connacht a few weeks ago, and had the Ben O'Donnell's over. He hasn't started yet, but John Porch chipping in there, another Aussie sevens guy. Like, it's definitely starting to add to the game, and that's even with a few imports coming in as well. So I think down the line, like Jimmy O'Brien last night, another guy who was at that World Cup in San Francisco, and he had a pretty good performance for Leinster as well. So someone who could be knocking on the door down the line as well. Andy,
have you been impressed with Hugo Keenan since August?
Very much so. Just to follow on Louise's insights from the sevens game, it's a type of game that the demand, it's physically sickening game to play. It's brilliant to watch, but if you're talking about shuttle runs that are 70-meter sprints that are relentless, while under that level of fatigue, to be able to then punch pass or power pass off both hands maybe 20 meters while fixing or holding opposition defenders, it does hone in those skills that, albeit there's a lot of space on the field, it does actually hone in on the skills that you need, particularly as an outside back, I would say, coming into the 15-a-side game. And the mention of Caleb Clark there in terms of his role in the current New Zealand setup, we've been a bit slow to adapt or recognise the potential for developing top professional 15-a-side players via the sevens circuit. I played the 2001 World Cup sevens back in January 2001 in Argentina, and and it was hilarious. We were Ragball Rovers. We were sent down in the old Nike jerseys. They were like winter duvets, and it was about 35 degrees Celsius. We had zero training. I mean none. We were just picked from our provinces, put in a plane, and sent down in front of 50,000 people. We took a 5-0 lead against Serevi's Fiji, and they managed to beat us 56-5 in the next 13 minutes. So, I know it's not relevant to Hugo Keenan immediately, but it shows a little bit of a distance in terms of what the IRFU have done in recent years with sevens, where they've actually invested time, they've invested good coaching, they've given the sevens the resources, and then you do see the odd person coming through then like Hugo Keenan, and in a small rugby nation it's so worthwhile. But what I've seen from Hugo since August, I was chatting to Brian O'Driscoll recently. He said he came into the Leinster setup and he was head and shoulders above everyone else in terms of the endurance fitness testing. He can he can run fast for very, very long periods repeatedly without dropping off his pace, and that's obviously come from the sevens game. But coming into a pretty established Leinster setup where there's a lot of top athletes, to be head and shoulders above everyone in some of those tests shows the level of fitness he's attained to come in, and that actually can be hugely valuable in the 15s game, you know. And not only fitness, he's clearly got good skill level. Louise has mentioned in his footballing prowess. Again, it's not a common trait in a outside three player. A winger or fullback tend not to be recognised as the more cerebral footballers within the team. But if he's got that mix, it's a wonderful mix.
Johnny, the one thing about him, he doesn't, like, in terms of a strike rate with tries, like, I mean, he hasn't been scoring a huge amount of tries, but is that a bit of an anomaly because of the way Leinster play, where like James Lowe, you know, would be their big wing attacking weapon, that he kind of hasn't really been getting the chances to score, but it's been his general work that has been excelling?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's his hunger to work off the ball and pop up on inside trails and outside trails in terms of chasing those offload lines. And I think that's, you know, if he continues to do that and he's really, really busy off his wing, then those tries will begin to come. But I think that's the way he plays and how busy he is, creates opportunities for other people, because he can initially be the initial line break that sets up something for 2 or 3 phases later. So I think it's his work off the ball and how busy he is consistently really kind of puts him in the position that he's in now to hopefully take an opportunity today.
Will Connors then the other debutant, Johnny, in the starting 15 at least. Stander, Doris and Connors in the back row. Is Andy Farrell in a position now where game by game he can actually kind of pick a little bit horses for courses in the back row with the wide variety of players he has available? Like, you're looking, Peter O'Mahony's on the bench, Josh van der Fleer can't get into the 23. I don't think anyone would be shocked to see van der Fleer come in and start next week in France, for example.
Yeah, I think, you know, he has abundance of options at back row, and the balance, you know, he can pick really well balanced back rows across the 3 positions. And, you know, I think you've seen CJ, particularly with the new breakdown interpretations, he's had a field day, and he's been getting over the ball, and he's got such a big frame on top of his natural farmer strength that he's really particularly hard to move off the ball. And, you know, himself and Connors can work really well in tandem, and that gives Keelan Doris the opportunity to, in attack, to carry, to get his hands free. And then you have CJ that will just consistently keep carrying for you all the time. And Connors, I suppose, can be a bit like Shane Jennings at time, and really good link player, but also that kind of natural 7 and that stature that's going to cause havoc at breakdown defensively.
Louise, Johnny was mentioning CJ Stander there and how good he's looked, particularly getting in over the ball with the new ruck interpretations lately and the way they've been implemented. To me, anyway, it actually looks like he's a little bit lighter on his feet. He looks like maybe he's actually shedded a couple of kilos over the lockdown period, because he has looked a lot sharper. He's looked a lot quicker over since rugby came back in August.
Yeah, I think you could look at that to maybe 2 reasons for that. One could be, he could look a bit lighter. I mean, I don't know exactly what he weighs or what he weighed before. But another thing is, I mean, consistently over the last few Six Nations, over the World Cup, CJ Stander has been top of carries. He has been putting his body on the line week in, week out, serious amount of game time, and he's been shifting a lot of work. So maybe the lockdown for someone, you know, coming towards not quite the tail end, not the tail end of his career, but he's primed. He's had a lot of professional rugby under his belt as well. Maybe the lockdown just worked to give him a little bit of a complete mental and physical break. And I think we'll see a lot of players maybe that this is going to act to add a bit of longevity to their career, and maybe push off early notions of retirement. Like that guy, when you're looking at carrying charts, he is consistently up the top, and not only for Ireland but across, you know, Six Nations, and that has to take its toll after a time, because, you know, he isn't a guy who gets injured that easily or that regularly either. So I don't know, it's a little bit of freshness, maybe has a little bit of pep in his step. Plus, obviously, everyone's been missing their rugby, and you're back on the field, you're fresh, you're raring to go could be just a little bit of that too.
OK, we're going to take a quick break. First, though, just run through. Full-time whistle is gone at the London Stadium. West Ham and Man City. How did it finish? Guy Swindles?
West Ham 1, Manchester City 1. City will feel that they should probably have taken all 3 points given the possession that they enjoyed in this match. But West Ham will point to a well-controlled first half and a wonderful goal from Michail Antonio after 18 minutes to give them a lead. After that, though, City hammered at the door, and apart from substitute Foden's firing home in the 52nd minute, had nothing much to show for their efforts. Hammers hanging on at the end. West Ham 1, Manchester City 1.
And just before we take that break as well, Louise, I'm going to let you know and tell everyone, when we did ask you to come on today, you were saying that we were going to be prying you away from watching Kerry and Donegal. Your absence is clearly working, because Kerry are 2-4 to 4 points in front with just over 25 minutes gone. Goals for Sean O'Shea and Gavin White. So Kerry 6 points in front. A win for them and they'll seal the Division 1 title. Elsewhere in the Allianz Leagues, Roscommon 5 points to 3 in front against Cavan. Armagh 1-7 to 5 points in front away to Clare. It is 3 points apiece between Kildare and Westmeath. Fermanagh leading Laois by 3 points to 2. And then in Division 4, Limerick 1-6 to 1 point ahead against Sligo. Waterford and Antrim, it's Antrim 1-5, Waterford 3 points in Dundalk, and Wicklow 4 points to 3 in front against Wexford. Just over an hour to go until kick-off at the AVIVA Stadium. We'll be back for more with our panel with Andy Dunne, Johnny Murphy and Louise Galvin after the break.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
What is it like working for one of the most controversial and chaotic White House administrations in American history?
This administration is running like a fine-tuned machine.
On this week's episode of Race to the White House, in an Irish exclusive, we speak to Madeleine Westerhout, the former personal assistant to President Donald J. Trump, and discover what really goes on behind closed doors. Plus, our panel debates the major issues on the campaign trail as the clock ticks down to the most important election in a generation.
Race to the White House with Simon Tierney.
Tune in Saturday evening at 7.
On News Talk.
This October, watch the big games every weekend with Sky Sports and Sports Extra half price. This week it's Man United Chelsea live only on Sky Sports.
Rashford, Martial!
In a star-studded clash.
Mason Mount.
Get Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports half price for 6 months. Search Sky Sports Sale. New sports customers only. Standard pricing applies after 6 months or if cancelling one element of the bundle. Minimum term and further terms apply.
A classic reimagined. The previous one was good, but the all-new Skoda Octavia is exceptional. Visit your local Skoda dealer today.
Claim up to 50% cash back on Samsung soundbars when bought with any Samsung TV. For more information, go online to powercity.ie today. T's and C's apply.
At Leia Healthcare, we always want to give our members more. So now you get unrestricted access to a world of benefits that will help you stay healthy. From convenient video calls with a GP to get prescriptions online, to easy access to experts when you finally want to do something about your ropey knee or dodgy back. And if you do need to see someone urgently, our clinics are available for minor injuries, all without you needing to put your hand in your pocket. Let's stay on top of your health, in every way. Leia Healthcare, looking after you always.
Insurance provided by Ellipse Insurance Limited, trading as Leia Healthcare. Leia Healthcare Limited, trading as Leia Healthcare, and Leia Life is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Unrestricted benefits are available until the end of December. Fair usage policy applies.
Planning to give your office a facelift? Need help optimizing your workspace to meet the new health and safety guidelines? The team at Hunt Office Interiors can help with all of your planning, design and project management requirements. We provide a full range of solutions from office furniture and seating to state-of-the-art glass partitions. With ultra-modern showrooms in City West and Limerick, we'd love to show you what we're made of. To connect with our interiors team, simply email interiors@huntoffice.ie. Serving Ireland's business community for over 21 years. Huntoffice.ie.
At Centra, we have everything you need for the long weekend. Like inspired by Centra, fresh Irish Angus triploin steak, 1454 gram, only €7.50. 7-Up and Club Orange 18-can packs, only €10 each. And until Monday, Trevento Reserve Malbec and Torres Vinasol wine, 2 for €15. Centra, live every day. Enjoy, go sensibly.
At Specsavers, our stores are now open. So if your hearing or sight isn't quite right, please get in contact. We're doing everything to make sure your safety comes first, from limiting the people in store to disinfecting glasses and test equipment. We'll be wearing protective gear, so if you can't see our friendly faces behind our masks, we promise they're still there.
Specsavers, open with you in mind. Book an appointment online or call your nearest store.
Life admin. Yep. It even sounds boring. No wonder it goes on the long finger. But when you do get round to it, a good place to start is by reviewing your mortgage. You really never know if there's a better option unless you look into it. That's where the Ulster Bank mortgage team could help. Wherever you bank, get in touch and find out about switching your mortgage to us. Just search Ulster Bank Switch. Ulster Bank. Help for what matters. Over 18s only. Ulster Bank Ireland DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
The GAA Championships are back on Sky Sports. Enjoy all the action. And all the drama. Don't miss Laois take on Dublin in the Leinster GAA Hurling Senior Championship. This Saturday from 5 p.m. Live only on Sky Sports Mix. So strong. Be inside the game with all live GAA games available for all Sky customers at no extra cost. Sky Sports. Feel it all.
The tall apple tree in Jim's garden had brought him years of joy. It had been a goalpost, a shading spot and a hiding place.
A little pruning and it'll come back stronger than ever. It's gone a bit wild. Just a few of these taller branches and we're done.
Always ask yourself the question when cutting back trees or hedges.
Are you sure it's safe?
Stay safe. Stay clear of electricity wires.
For emergencies, call 1-800-372-999.
ESB Networks, serving all electricity customers.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
All right, you're very welcome back to this Saturday's Off the Ball. Neil Treacy with you until 5 o'clock. We're previewing Ireland against Italy in the Six Nations with Andy Dunne, Johne Murphy and Louise Galvin. That kicks off at 3:30. Just to keep you up to date, 32 minutes on the clock at Austin Stack Park in Tralee. Kerry 2-7 to 7 points now in front against Donegal in that Division 1 game. Some text, guys, before we get back into the conversation. Paddy in Cork says, Stockdale at 15 is like using a toothless Alsatian as a guard dog. Cahill in Limerick City says, Ireland have been awful to watch the last 18 months now, and a good performance over Italy won't change anything. Next week it'll be the same story where media and fans hype up the Irish squad, and then we play France, who will beat us out the park. Toby in Greystone says, how is Josh van der Fleer not starting? One of the best sevens in world rugby. That he is, Toby, but unfortunately Ireland actually just have an incredible array of talent in the back row at the moment. Ellen in Killiney says, looking forward to seeing a Doris Connors partnership. O'Mahony is still a quality player, but we need something different, and these guys can do that along with CJ Stander. And then Carl in Dublin says, if Hugo plays well today, can we honestly say he's ready to face France? Guys, on this game in particular though, Andy, I'll go to you first. Italy at home, when you haven't played a game of Test rugby for 8 months, is this actually just an ideal fixture for the players to ease themselves back in? Because we always know Italy, like physically they always bring it. It's always an incredibly hard game. You always hear that from the players afterwards, that they're in absolute ribbons from playing them. But they're a team you're expected to beat. You're expected to beat them comfortably. And in all honesty, like, you know, if we look at the 15s and the 23s, they are on paper definitely a much better team. Is this an ideal one just to get started back into it ahead of France next week?
In short, yes.
Feel free to go long. Feel free to go long.
I think they're a world apart in terms of the quality of personnel. Italy, you know, are looking at Franco Smith has come in, and he's really looking at the classic 4 year. You know, give me 4 years and I'll build it. And he's bringing in young, unproven players. The name of the newly capped number 10 just escapes me. Quite a good young talent. He's only 19 years old. That's it, yeah. But I suppose if you look at him, he's coming up against a 91 cap captain of Ireland, Johnny Sexton, World Rugby Player of the Year 2018. And if the difference in experience alone is going to be huge. So for younger Irish players, the likes of Hugo Keenan, for Stockdale playing in an unfamiliar position at international level, for the likes of Will Connors, for Andrew Porter, for any of the new selections or any of the new combinations, it is an ideal way to cut your teeth a week ahead of France. It's an interesting approach from Farrell, because I don't think this same side is going to start next week in France either. So he had a choice to pick close to the team he'll play in France, so they get 80 minutes work under their belt, or he could chop and change, and it looks like he's gone for that option, which is the less safe option.
Just to interrupt there, where do you think the changes would be for France then next week? Is it kind of dependent on how things go today?
Yeah, I think it's dependent on fitness levels as well, but he may not. I don't know if he'll look at Byrne and Ryan as a combination in the second row next week against France. They'd be a huge set of forwards in France. He may not look at Connors as a starting 7. You've already mentioned or alluded to that fact, with maybe Josh van der Fleer to come in. He may look at the likes of Henshaw swapping in for Aki, but he may not look at Stockdale as a 15. He may use that today just to see how that pans out. So he hasn't many options, but I like the fact that he hasn't gone safe, and given maybe his starting team next week, 80 minutes run out against Italy, what he's doing is, to me, pragmatic. You're going to build a bigger squad by giving younger, unproved guys a chance against Italy, and then suddenly you've got an extra player with a lot more confidence who's chomping at the bit for the bigger games and bigger selections.
Louise, one person it looks like, I suppose we could probably bank, is going to be playing next Saturday, fitness permitting, if he comes through today. Johnny Sexton, obviously had a small knock over the last couple of weeks, but he's someone who since we came out of lockdown again in August, and since rugby came back, he's actually looked a lot sharper again. Like in the final run of the Pro 14, looked a little bit back to his old self. Certainly looked like he got bigger and bulkier as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all were looking at the photos coming out of lockdown. I've never seen Johnny looking so big and strong. And again, it's similar to the CJ Standard case. Like, sometimes a rest can be as good as anything else. And like, listen to the comments even there, Neil. I mean, all negativity. Sometimes, like, Jeannie Mac, poor old Hugo, even if he plays well, sure, what's he going to do against France next week? And the same with Conor Murray or Stander or whoever. Like, sometimes we just need to sit back and let these guys play. And like, Johnny Sexton is proven. He doesn't need to prove himself. Rugby's a simple game. We should be getting bonus point win today. And he's completely right. And it's a good opportunity to get the younger players, the debutants, to get a bit of confidence under their belts. And then the guys who, well, they've lost their places, or they've lost their place in the 23, they're chomping at the bit to get back in. So a bonus point win today, positive set off the mark. And then Andy Farrell has a whole squad of players all fighting fit and trying to get ready for a game away to France, which, let's be honest, it is, okay, getting a bonus point win in France would be incredibly difficult, the way French are going at the moment. But it is, a big carrot standing there. And look, it might be an aside, but away from the on-field activities, we know the RFU are suffering a lot of losses, and there's, the money difference between first, second, third. I'm sure the players will have that. It mightn't be in their mind, but they're aware of it. And it's quite something that's quite important when we're looking at, staff getting cut back. So that the money side of it, unfortunately, more than any other year, is probably more important. So look, let's start with a bonus point win today, and let's take it from there then, and maybe calm the negativity a little bit, because I'm just delighted rugby is back, and it's on TV, both the men and the women. Yeah, certainly. Johnny, Louise was saying there, like, Johnny Sexton is someone who has absolutely nothing to prove. Is Conor Murray, on the other hand, then someone who actually does maybe have a little bit to prove? Like, he's someone who I think over the last couple of months, the variety of opinion on his performances, like, he's played two and a bit games for Munster since rugby came back in August, but the variety in opinion between the way he's been playing has been absolutely staggering. What way do you see his performances over the last little while?
I think the speed of his pass is his point of difference, and his quickness to the ball at the base of the ruck. I think that's what we're going to look for. Generally, Mike Catt's teams like to play with ball in hand and hold on to ball for long periods of time and have a bit more probably deception than, say Joe Smith's teams, who would be kind of ruck to ruck, where my Catt probably look to develop and layer a small bit more. So I think that's his point. I think Conor has looked sharp. I think his pass has looked sharp, and I think the break for Conor, probably, like Louise has already said, for other players, just has freshened his mind and given him an opportunity to take a break, probably more so mentally, given how much flack he's been under, rightly or wrongly. But he probably know himself that his performances have pre-lockdown probably dipped a small bit, but we probably need to have been helped out by others in terms of around the team and take responsibility away from him. I think now it's just about getting back to where he was, and I think his speed of pass is his point of difference in Ireland, and that's why he consistently gets picked. So I was impressed with his performances so far, and I expect him to take another step forward today and be starting again next week.
Jamieson Gibson Park then, Johne, is one of the other debutants. We'll mention Ed Byrne in a couple of minutes as well. Gibson Park, though, he's been qualified for over a year now, so he's been thereabouts. He hasn't just been plunged in. He's had to really work to make the breakthrough there. What's he bringing to the group? Obviously, we've seen with Leinster over the last while. He's just so electric, and he's so kind of, I suppose, he's constantly going. He's non-stop around the bases. He's always looking to snipe and create an attack. Is he just bringing up the speed later on in the game when things get a bit loose?
Yeah, I think it's his, it's his ability to snipe. It's, as you've just said, his attack threat on the ball, but also his calming influence. He's extremely experienced. He's won a Super 14. He's been there and done a lot. So it's his calming influence in games when they're in the melting pot in the last 10, 15 minutes that really gives everyone around him, a boost, and everyone can close out a game. So, but he brings people in, particularly at 9 when he snipes. He's bringing other players into the game more, and it's a nice balance to have. And Munster have used it with Casey over the last couple of games. That's what Casey does, and then you have Murray, and it's a speed of ball and a speed of delivery. It's a nice balance to have, and you can click in and out of both.
And then, Andy, one of the feel-good stories of today, Ed Byrne likely to come off the bench for his Irish debut. There have been quotes rehashed over the last couple of weeks about the injury troubles he had for such a long period of time. A few years ago, spent 28 months out of the game with an ACL injury followed by a patella tendon injury shortly afterwards as well. He was mentioning how he was, along with Cian Healy maybe a few years ago, he was looking for those retirement papers. He was ready to sign them, and fast forward a few years, here he is about to make his Test debut for Ireland.
Yeah, I actually, he was a patient of mine when he was out in the sports surgery clinic. I was a physio, and this is way back before the ACL injury. He had a shoulder reconstruction as well, so he's got a lot of mileage on the clock. I remember chatting to him. I had recently retired, and he was only just coming into the Leinster squad, and at the time just encouraging him mentally just to hang in there. He's gone well beyond that. It just shows great character. It's a bit like Levy. It shows real character and resilience to rehabilitate from one serious injury, let alone multiple. And also, I think it shows a vote of confidence from management to keep a player on the books who's got a high injury profile in his past. They clearly rated his ability. I think they rate his personality in terms of his contribution within the group. He seems a hugely popular player, which is not always common.
Has captained them as well recently.
Yeah, and in this environment, you deal with a lot of spiky characters. You deal with a lot of egos. You tend not to get a lot of players who seem universally liked and popular. among their own teammates within Ireland and opposition teammates within Ireland, then a popular choice getting into the Irish squad, and it would be brilliant to see him get on the field today after the history of his recent 3 or 4 seasons.
Certainly, yeah. So very best of luck to him. Guys, going to ask you on the women's game as well. Quick one though, predictions for the 3:30 kickoff of the AVIVA?
I'll go first. I think we'll win by about 42 points.
Thoughts, guys?
I'll go for 34 point difference for Ireland.
And Louise?
Yeah, I think definitely a bonus point win. Anything else, and we will be disappointed. So probably got a 30+ point win.
Okay, and Louise, then 6:30 kick-off at Energia Park in Donnybrook. The Irish women's team getting their Six Nations campaign back up and running again. Before we actually mention the Italy game, I suppose the story that broke yesterday, actually just a really great bit of sportsmanship, that the French team are going to give up home advantage for next week's game. It was due to be played in Lille. It's now going to be played in Ireland. We presume it's going to be in Energia Park in Donnybrook next week as well.
Yeah. Because
the Irish women's team obviously would have been amateurs. They wouldn't have been, subject to the same COVID regulations that the men's team would, because they're professional athletes. So the Irish women's team would have had to self-isolate and quarantine when they came home from France. France, though, obviously, they have offered up the home advantage to Ireland next week. That is actually just a brilliant bit of sportsmanship, regardless of, what's on the line in the championship.
Yeah, look, this has been something that I know has been a bit of a thorn in the side for a while, wondering what was going to happen, and it was always going to depend on the state of the country as well. And obviously we entered level 5 lockdown, and we have teachers, doctors, students, a whole array of different careers within the squad, because it is an amateur squad. So I know that from a women's point of view, and certainly from Sevens, we have a really good relationship with the French head of women's rugby. I've spent plenty of weeks over there training in Marcoussis in their centre of excellence, and there's, we'd use them as a team we train with and against a lot. So there's definitely good lines of communication there. And look, they want a game, they want a competitive game. It's only going to serve to benefit them as well. So it's a great act of sportsmanship, but I can see how they're benefiting from it as well. They don't have to suffer the same level of restrictions when they return back to France. So although absolutely it's a great act of sportsmanship, it's going to benefit France as well. And I'm not sure next year if we have to relinquish our home advantage and we end up having 4 away games, could be a bit more difficult. But we won't worry about that at the moment. I'm not sure. Maybe that's not in the clause.
Yeah, we'll get the fine details when the contract's out, maybe in a while. Today's game, though, Italy, a much different prospect in the women's game than there will be in the men's game. They're a really, really improving side. Had an excellent win against Wales earlier on in the campaign as well. This is by no means the gimme that a lot of people would say the men's game is.
No, absolutely not. Outside of England, I'm pretty sure Italy have one of the best win records for the last 2 seasons. 2 years ago, they beat Ireland last year in Italy. They've toppled France as well recently. So I think it's only England that have consistently beaten them over the last few years. They certainly don't suffer any sort of, fear of traditional, I suppose, rugby nations. They're quite an experienced team. Their fullback Forlan, she's been out for about 18 months, and she's our captain. She's straight back into the squad, captaining the squad. So you can see how much esteem they hold her in. To say they're pretty used to playing together. Watch out as well. They've a 9 on the bench, Bertani. She's a little live wire if she comes back onto the field as well. So they're a strong team. And what's most important is that Ireland are up against Italy for that last qualifications or automatic qualification spot for the World Cup for next year in December. So it's more than just the Six Nations points. But Ireland have set out their stall. They want the 3 home wins, not counting, I suppose, the French game is going to be a home game next week. And they want to set themselves in good stead for those World Cup qualifiers in December as well.
Yeah, because those World Cup qualifiers, obviously, they are going to be huge. If if they win that, they are through to the World Cup. And then if they don't, through to the repechage then next year. But with that coming up, Ireland obviously probably out of the reckoning to win the championship, you would suspect. Is these next couple of games, is this about results or is it about performances?
I think obviously performance in terms of December is more important. I'm sure the girls and Adam Griggs would take 3 wins in December over 2 wins now and not winning in December, because it just has more implications if they weren't to get a World Cup qualifying place. But performance, if you have a good performance, you should be getting, if they perform the right way today, they should be getting positive results as well. I'll put it to you that way, that the two should go hand in hand, versus a performance against England, which may not result, a good performance in England, against the likes of England or France, may not result at the moment in coming out the right side of the result at the end. Against Italy, it should. And
then we are running out of time very, very quickly, though. Big boost for Ireland. Claire Malloy back after taking her sabbatical.
Yeah, back for a 70th cap. An ultimate competitor, warrior. I have no doubt she'll be hitting the ground running. She's been playing with Wasps in the Premiership as well, and you know that it's a very good standard over there. It's going to be a huge boost to have her in that back row alongside Ciara Griffin, obviously a captain, but also watch out for Dorothy Wall at number 6. She's had 3
making her debut.
Substitutes. Yeah, 3 making her starting debut. She's had 3 appearances off the bench. She's been in with Sevens with us the last year or two, and she is a massively explosive player. Again, it's allowed her to work on her skill set. And you know she's going to make a lot of line breaks, a lot of tackles today. So keep an eye out for Dorothy Wall at 6, and for Enya Breen at 13 as well, who's another young player who's got a tremendous skill set as well as some power and size behind her as well.
Guys, that's fantastic. Kick-off is approaching at the AVIVA Stadium, 3:30. Andy will be staying around for updates throughout on that this afternoon, while the women's game 6:30 kick-off at Energia Park in Donnybrook. Thanks a million for joining us on this panel, guys. That was Johnny Murphy, Louise Galvin and Andy Dunne. Just a reminder, Kerry 2-9 to 8 points now in front against Donegal at Austin Stack Park in Tralee. OTB Football Saturday coming up after the break as well. Daniel MacDonald's going to be with me, David Snade and Damien Delaney as well, as we look back on the Republic of Ireland's defeat to Ukraine in Kiev last night. And at Dundalk in the Europa League as well, Virgil van Dijk, the reaction to his injury, all of that coming up after the break.
Sign up for News Talk Extra, our email newsletter straight to your inbox. newstalk.com/extra.
A classic reimagined.